The most successful coach in the history of rugby sevens, Sir Gordon Tietjens, has resigned after 22 years in charge of the New Zealand men's side. Tietjens led New Zealand to 4 Commonwealth Games golds, 12 World Seven crowns and 2 World Cup Sevens titles. But the 60-year-old's tenure ended on a disappointing note, with the side failing to reach the medal rounds at Rio. Sir Gordon himself says he made the decision to quit about 6 months ago. He was always going to step down no matter what happened at the Olympics. But, as he told Joe Porter, the immense pressure in the build-up to the Olympics has been surprising and unsettling, even for a coach of his vast experience.
Obviously losing a quarter-final to Fiji, and that was probably our best game, I suppose, the Olympics. You know, we gave them their toughest game, and once you'd been beaten and there wasn't a chance for a medal, it was disappointing, and probably one of the probably if I look at my career, it was probably one of the downsides of that 22-year career that I've had, and because the expectation and going there with really a goal set to win a medal, and it wasn't to be. Yeah, really disappointing. But what I can also say is we gave it everything. You know, I asked the players to give it their 200%. They gave it that, and my management team, but we just weren't good enough.
At the moment you realised that the Rio dream was over, what did that feel like?
Well, it's a difficult feeling. It's because of the expectation. It was quite tough. You know, mate, I was hurting. I make no secret about that. I was really hurting, and hurting for everyone really, even for the country. But then I can reflect back now and think, well, I gave it my all. I gave it my best shot, and in that particular tournament, it wasn't good enough.
22 years and to have achieved so much else, to dwell on one result would not be very fair. So I guess it doesn't take too much to get some perspective on your career.
I think in perspective and putting it in reality, there were a lot of athletes that went to Rio, whether they be teams, rowing teams, athletic teams, individual athletes. You even look at tennis players, Novak Djokovic. You know, the pressures at the Olympics are huge, and a lot of players, a lot of athletes came out of that tournament and the expectations weren't met, and it was no different in our game as well. And I think that's what you've got to accept. When you go to the Olympics, you're on the world stage, it's a one-off tournament. It'll either work for you or it won't work for you. And some athletes come out of there, you know, and they've actually chased gold and got gold. There are a lot of athletes that have chased gold and haven't got gold, so that's the big part of it.
With the squad being, I guess, selected quite close to the Games and the competitive nature of people fighting for spots, in hindsight, do you think it may have been better to perhaps select an Olympic team at the start of the World Series and perhaps go through with the players knowing they were going to be there bar injury and not having that extra pressure of fighting for a spot?
I've always said to be good at this game, you've got to be playing it and training it. I mean, and the theory obviously was to have your team together for the entire World Series, but it wasn't to be, because also a lot of those players had commitments around Super Rugby, and it was always going to be that. Then there was also an All Black series against the Welsh, in which some of the players were actually involved in that. So that's what made it really difficult. We do have a congested rugby program, and those were the challenges that you'll always have as any All Black Sevens team will face, even over the years, going Common Games and to the next Olympics.
You think out of this review, perhaps for Tokyo 2020, it might be decided that people need to choose whether or not they're going to focus on sevens a couple of years out, and you can choose from that pool of players for the Tokyo Games?
I think there'll be some huge changes in sevens, certainly over the years, particularly if they centralise. And if they do centralise and the players are playing it and training it continually, perhaps they may be the best players to then take. Because if you look at all the other teams on a big spectrum, I suppose, there weren't many other players that played outside the World Series, that played in sides that were involved in the Olympics.
How hard is it going to be to find a New Zealand replacement for you?
Oh, I know, I'm sure there will be a lot of interest out there to come and try and put their hand up to coach the All Black Sevens team, I'm sure. And another coach will come in, he may do it differently, may set the bar differently around selection of players, etc. But again, he'll have my full support.
Sir Gordon Tietjens speaking to Joe Porter. As a note, the master coach rated 3 players as the best he's ever coached over those illustrious 22 years: Eric Rush, Christian Cullen and the late Jonah Lomu. Of course, we'll speak to one of them, Christian Cullen.